Oh, ago, and Mama Kwaba, on Hele, near a two, excellent, a cabo, Cariboni. Welcome to our special IAS film series, Sembene across Africa. I'm here, my name is Dr. Abadile Kamban, and I'm the coordinator of the film series, and this is?
Abina Pogu, and I'm a coordinator of the Sembene Across Africa project. And thank you for coming today. I think everyone's here because you have some idea of who Ousmane Sembene is. He's the grandfather of African cinema. He was one of the first prominent directors, and the thing I admired most about him is that he critiqued Africa. He critiqued what was wrong, what the corruption, what we were doing wrong, when he wasn't supposed to, when other people were too scared to do it. And this is something that I think is still relevant for now. And this documentary is really important because it's recognizing someone who paved the way for many people, and he gave a voice to the voiceless. And I think it's good to see like all the trials and tribulations that he went through to get to where he got to. Yeah.
So has anyone seen any films by Ousmane Sembene?
Mm-hmm.
Which film? Khala. Khala. You have to pronounce it the word of way. Khala, everyone. Khala. Khala. Has anyone seen Chedo? Chedo.
Yeah.
Chedo, amazing film. Or Camp de Charoy.
Yes.
Camp de Charoy. Very good. Or Borom Saret. Borom Saret. Or La Noire.
Yes.
Right? These are just a few of his amazing films. Mola de Mandabi, Fat Kine. I've seen every one of his films except for one, and I won't tell you which one I haven't seen yet. But I started playing it in my office before I came. I said, so now I can say I've at least started watching that one as well. But Ousmane Sembene, an amazing director. If nothing else, I pre-screened it. If nothing else, this should be inspiring for you to think, what am I doing with my life and how can I live it to the fullest? Because he really dedicated his entire life to his craft, and you will even see that. Some may even say he maybe even went too far, but it's something that we can all look at. So the film screening, it promises to be blacktastic, blacknificent, blackorific, blackterful, and spectacular. That is being screened not only here at African Studies here in Accra, Ghana. Oh no, it's being screened across 38 countries and 100 venues across all of Africa. So you are part of something huge. You are part of something amazing. Now for those who are in the back or close to the back, I want to remind you in the spirit of Rosa Parks, if you don't know who that is, that she refused to go to the back of the bus. However, some of you refused to come to the front of the Nketia Conference Hall. So, a word to the wise. Some are already moving before I've even made my plea to you. At so many different occasions I come to, and the front row is open. It's like no one thinks that they are worthy of sitting on the front row. And I don't want that to be the case, especially for African people and African studies. So with no further ado, we're going to look at the film Sembene. It's an amazing film, an amazing documentary. And at the conclusion, I think we have some refreshments for you. Very good. So you'll want to stay to the end. We'll have a short discussion, and then we'll send you on your way, hopefully inspired, black-spired, to live to your ultimate potential. So thank you for coming, and I'll see you in a little bit. Ago.
Amen.
Ago.
Amen.
So I think at this point we're going to open the floor for any thoughts, reflections, maybe question and answer. Abena.
Hi. Did everyone like the movie? Yeah. What were some of the feelings you had watching it? Like, how did it make you feel about how we can care for our cultural legacy individually? Yes.
It's interesting because he inspires you in what he was able to achieve. But
Yeah.
then you look at what he did to the students.
Can everyone hear?
Yeah.
Can you hear? Yeah. Okay, so I just found it really interesting that he inspires you in what he was able to achieve and how determined he was to get to sort of a story that was ours, told on our condition, but at the same time, I feel like he did disempower the students, because a legacy must be continued, right? And it's not just in terms of the content he created. In supporting those students who he took the money from, he would have ensured sustainability of the storytelling, you know? And so you look at it and you're like, you know, what he achieved was amazing. He did great things, but at the same time, it's hard not to be upset that there was an opportunity lost. Because now, you know, I feel like, you know, maybe there would have been more of that kind of storytelling. We wouldn't be watching telenovelas every day, you know, so, kind of thing. Yeah, so that, I mean, you appreciate the man, and you know, you see what he's doing, and you also have to appreciate how brave he was as a character. You know, there's moments there where you're like, you know, I'm not sure I'd have been able to make the same decisions, but yeah, at the same time, I keep going back to that, how painful it is that he did that. He almost tainted his own legacy in that sense, because if he had been able to sort of train these people and allow the fund which he was managing to go down the right channels, we would have now had, you know, a continuity of the style of storytelling and a definite reclamation of the narrative, you know?
I think throughout the movie, one major thing that you can see is that he had a really huge ego, and in a way that's important for all the great things he achieved, because without it, I don't think he would have been confident enough to really go for it as he did. Yeah.
Thank you. I also really enjoyed the film. I want to start responding by saying I actually tend to disagree with you, because watching it, I was astounded by the hubris of masculinity that goes throughout the entire film, right? And I kept wondering, what would a feminist analysis of Sembene's legacy look like? And I think that's part of what Namato was saying in terms of the ways in which he really, in a way, hoards resources. And so even as we're in this moment celebrating a legacy that's an important one in terms of telling African stories and kind of creating spaces and how would you say, kind of moving forward in spaces that have not been before, what does it mean to do it in a more collaborative way that allows for a greater diversity of stories? It's not just his vision, it's not just his story. There was something off-putting when he gets on that stage and he says, "I'm the voice of a million people," right? Like,
I am the ears,
you know,
I am the everything.
Right, like those million people have voices too, so what does it mean to engage in this kind of work? This might be a lesson, right? Not to disparage his legacy, but to take that lesson in terms of thinking about how to move forward in more, I say, feminist, inclusive ways in creating art.
I agree with that. Feminist reading of what was presented, I think for the time and what he did, it wasn't, I'm not saying we should be grateful, but like, he was a really egotistical African man, and I don't think even if he had had more time to consider that reading of his work, he would have incorporated it. But at the same time, in African cinema, he did a lot for giving women voices. Actually, that's also one of the reasons why I like Usman Sembene, because yeah, as you saw with Mulade and Fatkine, he made a lot of movies that portrayed African women as strong and as independent. Oh yeah. And like growing up, like I grew up on like Nollywood, and that was just like watching women do weird stuff. Like, I don't know, like, and to see an African filmmaker like acknowledge the fact that women can think for themselves, and it's not all about like cheating husbands and whatnot. In that respect, he did a lot, but there was more he could do, and he did as to the fact of like being a mentor and kind of creating some sustainability. Like, he always asked like, oh, why can't we do this in Africa, and why can't we do this? He needed to accept responsibility, like, for some of the things he did, like hoarding ideas and taking money and resources from people who could really benefit from it. But I can't speak to it.
Yeah.
So for me, that film, Kamble Chorwe, is probably one of my favorite films. That one and Chedo are one of my favorite two films from him, and also Emitai. And I didn't know the backstory until I saw, this, and it really changed my view of it. You got the, I guess, summary of what goes on. They go and fight off in World War II. Then they come and demand that it's a real story. This actually happened. This isn't like whatever. They came and demanded their pay. And as payment for demanding their pay, they were shot down with machine guns and tanks and all these types of things. So it was very powerful too, and we had a similar thing that happened here in Ghana, so it's not something way far away in Senegal and the same thing happened in the US. Black people came back and they were lynched in their uniforms, in their World War II uniforms. They were just fighting for America. And while they're still just got off the boat, then they're lynched, right? So this is a common experience for Black people, for African people, and I thought it was really amazing that he was able to tell that story. And then I found out the backstory, and it made me kind of feel this internal, okay, I still think the film is powerful, but, so again, as has been mentioned, it kind of taints your view. And I've seen this for quite a few people, especially elders who are like gurus who I've looked up to, and then you'll find out something and then it makes it kind of whatever. So for me, the point is less to critique them. The real critique, if I have one, is by living my life in a different way. So it's less about, let's point our fingers, oh, you weren't perfect, you didn't do this right. Well, now we are living our lives, so what are we going to do? If we have funds, then it would behoove us to say, if my critique will be in dealing with those funds in a different way, right?
Sorry. How can art and film create change in oppressed society?
Oh,
we have another question.
Comment.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see.
Thank you. Kosha Mafabo was my name. I'm probably the oldest person in the room. I'd like to take off from where Dr. Kambon left and say we're probably all on the path to being hopefully ancestors one day, because not everyone gets to be an ancestor. It depends very much on how you live your life, is what I think. This is my belief. within that story now. So looking at Sembene, we see that we hopefully will become elders and then become ancestors. Many of our elders have feet of clay. People we look up to are heroes, are heroines. And as Dr. Campbell says, it depends on us now to become the kind of person we want to become then. You can't wait till then. So yes, Sembene has, I think, done amazing things for cinema, for African cinema, for telling our stories, for getting it out there. But we can learn from his shortcomings, and we should ask ourselves whether the end always justifies the means. You know, can you tell a story of liberation of African people while subordinating your mentees? You know, there's that internal conflict that is there. And the other point I want to make is about his biographer, who I think taught at Matolio for a while. I don't know much about him, but the way in which he articulates Sembene's life, I find very helpful personally, to show us the feet of clay, but how we can also look at our heroes and use them and their lives stories and what they've done to tell a larger story about how we can do liberation struggles. And the last thing I'll say is, as a feminist scholar, how do I put this? As an older feminist scholar, some of the younger women, gender persons, human beings in the room might disagree with some of them, but I find that Sembene has been very useful to the cause in terms of the characters that he has tried to convey. Of course, there are complications in his own life, in his personal relationships with women also. We don't see much of that in the film, but in his relationships with women as well. And so we're not going to get a perfect saint or a perfect hero, and we should not only recognize that, but also be honest about the flaws in our heroes, because otherwise, if we don't out the flaws in a way, then when these stories come out, then you are sort of confronted with, okay, do I continue to embrace Sembene or do I throw him away? But I don't think it's an either-or situation. We recognize him, warts and all, and any other heroes that we have, but learn from that humility is something that doesn't fall on you. You have to cultivate it. And I don't think you have to be arrogant if you're great. You can also be great and humble and listen to people's corrections and so on. So thanks for listening to my sermon.
As Prof. Ademakun before was speaking, there's a proverb from the oldest book in the history of the world. Everyone knows that book, I hope, since we're here in African Studies. One. What book is that? Two. What book is that?
Instructions of Ptah Hotep.
Very good. Instructions of Ptah Hotep. And in it, it says, every man teaches as he acts. Sometimes they teach you how to act in the sense of wanting to do like how they're doing. Sometimes they'll tell you not to behave in that way. So just in all of our actions, we can see that we ourselves are teaching. We may be teaching people this is the way to go, or on the other side, please don't do like me, right? But we can see that for every person in all of the actions. Some things we will want to emulate, and other things perhaps we wouldn't.
Yeah, that's a good point. How can we, in our own lives, like, you don't have to be a great movie maker per se, but how can you kind of right the injustices you see or make a difference? Like with Sembene, a lot of his movies got banned for being too risque, but he was a renegade and he still pursued them. I mean, we see this now with what's the name of, with Anas, or what that's what he's called, right? And just exposing corruption and things like that. But how can we, in our own creative forms, be instigators of change today? Does anyone know? Oh yeah.
I mean, we just observed one now. It starts with simply people taking up the initiative to tell their own stories and creating their own narratives.
I don't think I have an answer to that question, but I did want to expand the conversation a little bit, because you brought up Anas, who is, if I understood correctly, relatively aided by the state in order to get this screening so widely disseminated in Ghana. And I'm thinking about two other movies that just came out on the continent that were banned by state agencies, right? So we're talking about Rafiki, which went to the Cannes, but then wasn't shown in Kenya. And I'm thinking about Sembene, The Wound, which was a South African film that was also banned, right? And so even as we might have these conversations about how can we pick up arms in particular ways, there's also a way in which there are state agencies and entities that might support certain kinds of free expression and suppress other kinds. And so the question, I think, must include a way of attending to the ways in which government agencies suppress and censor art, and also how to speak up against those kinds of things. I don't have an answer, but I just wanted to kind of insert that into the conversation as well.
Anyone else?
Going back a little bit again to what we were talking about before with how he handled the fund and all that, I think it makes me think about how, it's not to say that we should be mistreating our elders or anything like that, but it makes me think about how something I'm seeing a lot recently, at least, is there's this fear that we have that, you know, some say it comes down to tradition. There's all sorts of different reasons for it, but I'm not going to sort of interrogate it here, at least. For me, what that's done in recent years is, maybe I'm an architect, so I create space. I call myself a space maker, not necessarily an architect, because it's not just physical spaces we're making. I've come away from the space, the idea of dictating how a space is created. So we are going to make this work like this, this works like that, and it will do A, B, C, D. And I'm sort of working myself into a space where I can now facilitate the making of space. So when I'm engaging with people, I'm saying, how is this supposed to work for you? So essentially, I have these tools. Make me your arm. You know, so as opposed to coming in and being like, I know, well, like he was doing in the film, how do I step back? How do I, the way I mentioned it to you a while back, is instead of creating form, I'm dissolving the idea of form in architecture and creating a platform instead. So you're elevating the voices of those that, they're not voiceless in my mind. They are people whose voices we choose not to hear. So how do I elevate those? And that's by becoming more of a facilitator as opposed to someone who says these are the stories that will be told. And I guess that's the same thing that, you know, the state agencies and all that do. They pick which narratives to pick and run with. So how do we sort of step back from being so visible as the storytellers and allow people to use us instead? It's just a thought.
Any other thoughts on that subject? As I was on my way up, I saw that Anas is suing Kennedy Ajapong for 25 million Ghana cedis. That just came through. So, okay. That's a twist. For this year's Black History Month Film Festival, which is part of the African World Documentary Film Festival, we showed Burkina Bay Rising. I don't know if some of you were here for that. But it comes to the point about state agencies that what it does is it documents the role that people played, specifically artists played, in the overthrow of Blaise Compaoré, through plays that incited people to do certain things. Then people just doing things on the spur of the moment. And I think that that's another way of approaching filmmaking. So this is, in that case, a different genre, it's documentary, but they're just looking through what are people doing, how can I put my lens and capture what people are doing, and then spur things like that other places. When I look at, definitely that film would not have been released in Burkina Faso under Blaise Compaoré, but it's something that goes again to this point about state agencies either facilitating or hurting. Sometimes it may require some type of change, revolutionary change, in order to change what the state is doing or what the state is not doing. And sometimes the art itself can be a vehicle for doing that.
Yeah. Does anyone want to respond to that? Anyone have any more? Yes?
Yeah, continuing along the lines of the place of art and liberation, and why state agencies tend to crack down on images and contents that they are opposed to. Basically, I think one of the powers of art is that it has this ability to awaken people or parts of people that could be asleep, all right? And as soon as state agencies, and the state agencies prefer to operate a system with those parts of people asleep. That way, they are able to carry out whatever activities that they're interested in. But the moment they recognize content that's capable of awakening people, then that's when they're moving into. And so speaking to the power of art, I think it has this awakening, abilities, and it communicates to many people, very strongly. In addition to this, there's something I noticed in Sembene's story that I've seen reading up on the lives of characters like Ayikoyama, Igugi Wationgo, Chinua Achebe, and co. It's about the very crucial moments in their lives where they recognize that the system, usually the colonial system, has placed them on a certain path. And in order to see a new reality, there's a need for them to move away from that path. And this comes with some actions on their part. Some of them, first of all, work on their identities and so on and so forth. So that's probably what I'm taking away from here. And I look forward to seeing other significant characters in recent African history who also made this realization and moved away from that path. Right.
Just a quick response or addition to what Namata was saying about the ways in which we can include different aspects of the society or our environment when it comes to art making. I think the move towards more collaborative ways of looking at art that seeks to dissolve the artist as a genius or the artist at the apex of, like kind of hierarchical system is perhaps more interesting in this regard. Like if we start looking at ways of working collaboratively as opposed to the single genius notion, I think we can make a way forward.
Since we're talking about the power of art, I wanted to bring up a situation that happened recently, actually right here in this room. And Sela is smiling so he knows where I'm going with it. That we had a piece of art that was dropped onto our campus here called Gandhi. Right? So this piece of art was here, it was brought here, people were not consulted. Some of us who knew who Gandhi was started to spread the message of this is someone who was anti-black from the beginning of his life to the end of his life, fighting against the Dalits in India, and before that, the Africans, the Zulus in South Africa. And Sela was doing an exhibition in this room, and he brought an image of Bright Aqua, right? And it showed Gandhi pouring some type of liquid, I won't guess what it is, on the head of the former vice chancellor. And Sela was told by someone, I don't know who, I can guess, that he needed to take it down. It was too provocative. Apparently he would spark off a revolution if that picture was allowed to stay on that wall over there. And it was quite a moment where a decision had to be, made, but it really speaks to the power of art. So we're talking about Camp de Charoy being banned in France, talking about Chedo being banned in Senegal. We're looking at a picture that's banned here. However, the statue of someone who said that we're 1 degree removed from animals is allowed to stay, but this picture made by an African must be taken down. I'll leave you to think about whatever lessons are in that.
We can continue our discussions over refreshments, because those were promised and we did deliver them. So they'll be outside. There's water, wine, chips, juices. And tomorrow at Anno Gallery, at the upstairs space, we'll be screening Hala. Yeah. At 5 p.m. as well. And you heard about that movie in this movie, which was one of Sembene's seminal work. And I don't know if anyone has seen it, but it took me watching it 3 times before I fully got it, because of all the double speak and sarcasm just went over my head. But if you want to see it another time, definitely come tomorrow to Anno in Osu, opposite El Loco, and at 5, and we'll watch it together. Or if you're not gonna come, tell your friends. All right, let's go have some wine.
And thank you all for coming. Give yourselves a round of applause. I hope you found it to be blacktastic, blacknificent, blackorific, and spectacular. And we'll see you for the film series next semester.